Gripping the hospital bedsheet in pain, Lucy Herrera had always believed that love conquered every obstacle. She pictured her husband Daniel West clinging to her hand through the contractions, whispering promises of forever. But as her labor pains peaked, Daniel vanished, disappeared, deserted her at the moment she needed him most. In a single, excruciating night, Lucy's world shattered and a new fire sparked in her heart. She vowed to protect her child at all costs, even if it meant erasing Daniel from their lives. What unfolds next is a story of betrayal, redemption, and retribution, proving that real life can be more dramatic than any fiction. Long before the betrayal, the West name meant more to Lucy Herrera than just a ring on her finger. She came from modest beginnings in Queens, New York. Her mother was an immigrant from Guatemala, her father a factory worker with calloused hands and strong arms. They raised her to believe in honest work, unwavering loyalty, and the power of compassion. Lucy was intelligent and driven from an early age. Through scholarships and late-night study sessions, she succeeded in graduating from Georgetown University with degrees in international business and finance. Her brilliance became her ticket to a world far beyond her parents' cramped apartment. It wasn't long before she landed a job at a renowned investment firm. Life felt like it was on the cusp of something spectacular. That was when she met Daniel West. He was the new face in the city's high society, ambitious, confident, and charming. Daniel wasn't just handsome, with his tousled brown hair and intelligent hazel eyes. He had the pedigree to match. The West family had old money. Some whispered that Daniel's father, Gregory West, had first built his empire on questionable real estate deals, but no one dared confront him. Lucy encountered Daniel at a corporate charity event. She was drawn to his enthusiastic smile and the effortless way he navigated the glimmering crowd. He spoke with the assurance of someone who had never known any kind of shortage in life. Yet there was a gentleness about him too, an interest in Lucy's opinions and stories. With a swirl of champagne and a waltz under shimmering chandeliers, Lucy and Daniel shared their first dance, a moment so perfect she blushed at her own romantic imagination. In her mind, it was a fairy tale she never knew she wanted. Their first months together were magical. Daniel flew Lucy to Paris for Valentine's Day after their fourth official date. He introduced her to exclusive members-only lounges in Manhattan's top restaurants. More than the money he spent, it was the attention and devotion that swept her away. He listened when she talked about her family, her father's struggles with chronic back pain, and her dreams of building a charitable foundation for immigrant families. Daniel, in turn, opened up about his own complexities. He felt stifled by the weight of the West legacy. Every step in his life was planned according to the family's precise expectations: prep school, an Ivy League education, and taking over the board seat at West Holdings. Yet he yearned for a life that was truly his. Lucy's compassion drew him in further. He found comfort in her empathy, something he rarely experienced in high society circles. As time flew by, Lucy discovered what it felt like to be wooed by an affluent suitor who on the surface seemed deeply invested in her happiness. It was easy to overlook the minor red flags, an occasional phone call he refused to answer in her presence, or moments of unexplainable tension when his father, Gregory West, was mentioned. Within 6 months, Daniel proposed with a magnificent ring, an heirloom from the West family's sapphires and diamonds, arranged in an Art Deco pattern. Swept away by a wave of euphoria, Lucy said yes. After their engagement, she found herself featured in gossip columns, her once private life suddenly the talk of the city. Some sneered at her as a gold digger from nowhere. Others praised the couple as modern-day royalty. Lucy ignored the chatter, believing in the authenticity of their bond. She told herself that love was enough to mend any disparities between their worlds. Preparations for their wedding commenced in spectacular fashion. Lucy and Daniel decided on an August date, the peak of summer bloom, with a grand reception at the Plaza Hotel. The West family insisted on opulence-gilded invitations, $1,000 floral centerpieces, and handcrafted table linens from Italy. Lucy felt a whirl of excitement, but also a subtle sense of apprehension. It was during a dinner with the West family specifically arranged so Lucy could meet Daniel's intimidating father that she sensed the first official crack in her fairy tale. Gregory West, a tall, silver-haired patriarch with a steely gaze, offered Lucy a well-practiced smile of courtesy. Yet when Daniel left the room to take a call, Gregory leaned in close. "I know you're ambitious," he said quietly, swirling a glass of scotch in his hand. "But marrying into the West family isn't just about weddings and fairy tales. We have standards to uphold." Lucy felt her pulse spike. It wasn't an explicit threat, but the coldness in Gregory's voice sent an unmistakable warning. He continued, "I admire your drive, Lucy, and your philanthropic interests. However, let's be clear. The West fortune is not a toy to be split in half if things go sour. If you truly love Daniel, make sure you take care of him. And we will take care of you in our own way." Those words lingered. Lucy forced a polite smile and excused herself to check on the meal's progress in the kitchen. She felt queasy. Gregory's statement hung in her mind as a prelude to a world she did not fully understand, a world where financial and social obligations overshadowed personal relationships. Yet Lucy clung to the unwavering certainty that Daniel loved her. She trusted that together they could face any obstacle. The wedding day arrived. Lucy woke up in a plush bridal suite with her best friend, Teresa Vega, at her side. Teresa had been her confidant since high school, the one person who never cared about the glitz and glam. Over steaming cups of tea, Teresa helped calm Lucy's jitters. Lucy couldn't tell if it was pre-wedding excitement or a deeper anxiety about officially joining the West family. Lucy's parents were awestruck by the grandeur. Walking her father, Manuel Herrera, down the aisle was a proud moment, yet Lucy noticed a wistful look on her father's face as he took in the luxury around him. She realized how differently she and her parents had lived from her new in-laws. When Daniel appeared at the end of the aisle, dressed in a sleek, custom-made tuxedo, his eyes shining with delight, Lucy felt her doubts momentarily dissolve. They exchanged vows with a touch of sentimentality that charmed everyone in attendance. As they sealed their marriage with a kiss, the guests erupted in applause under the plaza's ornate chandeliers. The reception that followed was a whirlwind of champagne dancing and endless toasts. Lucy found time to exchange a few comforting words with her mother, who beamed at how far Lucy had come. Gregory West, though polite enough to pose for family photos, drifted around the edges of the reception like a silent overseer. Later that night, Lucy spied Daniel talking quietly with his father. There was tension in Daniel's rigid posture, the subtle set of Gregory's jaw. It was too noisy to overhear them. But the intensity on Daniel's face worried Lucy. She never got the chance to ask what was wrong. Despite the minor undercurrents, Lucy told herself that everything would be fine once the wedding celebrations concluded. Marriage is about compromise, she reassured herself, about forging a new path forward together. The honeymoon in Bora Bora was exquisite, and for a few weeks she lived in the bubble of newlywed bliss. Back from Bora Bora, Lucy settled into life at Daniel's penthouse overlooking Central Park. The space was immaculate marble floors, crystal chandeliers, floor-to-ceiling windows. A personal chef prepared elaborate meals. A housekeeper kept every surface gleaming. It felt like living in a dream. But Lucy also struggled to find her own place. She still maintained her job at the investment firm, determined to keep some measure of financial independence. Daniel supported this, or so he claimed. Yet Lucy noticed subtle shifts in his attitude. Little things. He'd make jokes about her 9-to-5 grind, or ask why she bothered with the stress when she didn't have to work. During dinners, he seemed preoccupied with his phone, more frequently often stepping away for hushed phone calls. There were also arguments about Lucy's family. She wanted to invite her parents over, to show them the penthouse, perhaps have a family dinner that felt more homey than catered. Daniel frowned at the idea, muttering something about scheduling and privacy. Lucy brushed it off at first, but felt the sting nonetheless. One afternoon, Teresa confided in Lucy that she'd heard rumors about Daniel at exclusive clubs, rumors of him partying late, sometimes with suspicious female company. Lucy dismissed it, telling herself Teresa was simply worried. "We're fine," she assured her best friend, though in her heart, a tiny sliver of doubt started to take root. Despite these unsettling moments, Lucy found comfort in focusing on their philanthropic plans. She had begun drafting a proposal for a foundation to support immigrant families like her own, and Daniel had promised to pitch it to his father. But after weeks of no progress, Lucy finally confronted Daniel. "Have you talked to your father about the foundation?" she asked, voice tinged with frustration. Daniel's face hardened. "He's not interested," he snapped. "We'll find another way, Lucy." The dismissal hurt her more than the words themselves. Though she couldn't pinpoint why, Lucy began to feel that maybe her marriage was slipping away from the fairy tale she once believed it was. When Lucy first suspected she was pregnant, it felt like a beacon of hope. She had been feeling unusual nausea and fatigue, and Teresa insisted she take a test. 2 lines appeared faint but unmistakable in the early morning light of Lucy's ensuite bathroom. After a moment of shock, Lucy's heart swelled. She pictured a new chapter, a chance for her and Daniel to refocus on family, to bond over the little life they had created. She planned a special dinner to tell Daniel the news. The penthouse's living room was set with candlelight, and Lucy prepared homemade lasagna, a dish she had learned from her mother. Lucy tried not to let her nerves get the better of her, but her heart fluttered with anticipation. When Daniel came home that evening, he looked stressed, his tie-undone jacket tossed over one arm. "I have big news," Lucy announced, taking his hand. She led him to the sofa, her eyes shining. "I'm pregnant." For a moment, Daniel's face lit up in genuine surprise, possibly even joy. He hugged her, let out a short laugh, and said, "We're going to be parents." Lucy felt relief. This was the moment she'd been yearning for a reconnection. But as the days passed, Lucy noticed Daniel's enthusiasm waned. He hardly mentioned the pregnancy unless prompted. He was frequently away on business, or so he claimed, traveling to Los Angeles, Miami, even Hong Kong. Lucy wanted a stable environment during her pregnancy, not a husband jetting around the globe. She began to suspect his absences weren't all work-related. Despite her uncertainties, Lucy pressed on, determined to make the best of the situation. She decorated a spare bedroom, converting it into a nursery with soft pastels. She focused on her own health, trying yoga and prenatal classes. Deep down, she still yearned for the dream. She once believed in an unshakable family bond. As Lucy's belly grew, so did the emotional distance between her and Daniel. The penthouse felt emptier. Sometimes she'd wake in the middle of the night, to find Daniel hadn't returned from a so-called business dinner. On the rare occasions when he did come home, he slept on the couch, citing exhaustion. Lucy tried to confront him. "Daniel, we need to talk about our future, about the baby." His responses were brief and dismissive. An uneasy tension lingered. Lucy considered couples counseling, but Daniel brushed off the idea. "We're just going through a rough patch," he'd say. "I have a lot on my plate at work, trying to make sure we're financially secure." Yet Lucy knew money wasn't an issue. The West family's fortune was considerable. She couldn't help but recall Gregory West's cold eyes, the words of warning and wonder if something else was happening behind the scenes. During her 7th month of pregnancy, Lucy discovered a concerning piece of evidence. She received a phone call from a New York hotel confirming a suite reservation for Daniel West. Confused because Daniel was supposed to be on a business trip in London, Lucy probed deeper. She found receipts for expensive gifts from jewelry stores, but she never received those gifts. Her heart pounded in her chest as she realized he might be having an affair or multiple affairs. She felt sick, not just with pregnancy nausea, but with heartbreak. Desperate, Lucy turned to Teresa for counsel. Over brunch in a small cafe in Greenwich Village, Lucy confessed her suspicions. Teresa held her hand and offered unwavering support. "You need to confront him," Teresa said firmly. "Demand the truth." Lucy did just that evening, brandishing the receipts and hotel confirmations. Daniel's face was a storm of anger and panic. "Why are you snooping into my business?" he snapped, avoiding any direct denial or confession. He insisted that the meetings were for confidential deals he couldn't disclose, that the gifts were for business associates. The tension hit a boiling point, Lucy's tears flooding down. She felt trapped, powerless, in the face of his lies. But at 8 months pregnant, Lucy had no choice but to focus on the life growing inside her, hoping for a miracle that would restore the man she once believed Daniel to be. Lucy's contractions started in the middle of a dreary Wednesday afternoon, 4 weeks before her due date. At first, she tried to brush off the pain as Braxton Hicks, but the pangs intensified rapidly. She called Daniel's cell phone voicemail. She tried again, anxiety ratcheting up. The penthouse felt cavernous and lonely without him. Terrified of delivering prematurely, Lucy grabbed her hospital bag and managed to call a taxi. During the ride to New York Presbyterian Hospital, she tried Daniel's number, repeatedly, each ring echoing her desperation. Eventually, she left a voicemail. "Daniel, I'm in labor. Please come. I need you." Lucy arrived at the hospital, her breaths shallow from anxiety and pain. Nurses rushed her to a labor suite, hooking her up to monitors. She felt tears sting her eyes as she clutched her phone. Where was Daniel? Where was the man who promised to love her through everything? Hours passed. The labor was grueling, and Daniel remained absent. Teresa showed up, face flushed from running, and took Lucy's hand. "I'm here," Teresa whispered, tears in her eyes at the sight of Lucy in such pain. Lucy could only nod in gratitude. Between painful contractions, Lucy's mind spun with a storm of emotions, betrayal, heartbreak, but also fierce determination to bring her baby safely into the world. After nearly 7 hours of intense labor, the baby's heartbeat began showing signs of distress. The obstetrician insisted on an emergency C-section. Lucy was rushed into surgery, and Teresa followed, stepping in for Daniel as Lucy's support person. Lucy's mind reeled. She needed Daniel's reassurance, the presence of her husband. But he was nowhere to be found. In the operating room, Lucy fought her panic. She heard the doctors murmuring instructions, felt the tug of surgical instruments. Then at last, she heard the faint cry of her newborn daughter. Relief and exhaustion washed over her like a tidal wave. In a moment that was supposed to be shared with Daniel, Lucy only felt heartbreak. Her daughter had arrived, but her husband was absent by choice. Lucy named her daughter Eloise. She cradled the tiny, swaddled form in her arms, marveling at Eloise's soft features, her round cheeks, the whisper of dark hair. Despite the exhaustion, Lucy felt an overwhelming rush of love. Tears fell freely, mingling joy and sorrow. Teresa snapped pictures, carefully avoiding the swirl of sadness in Lucy's eyes. Hours passed. Lucy dozed, intermittently waking to the beep of hospital machines. Each time she checked her phone. No texts, no missed calls from Daniel, only messages of congratulations from her parents and a few friends. Late that evening, a nurse entered Lucy's room. "You have a visitor," she said. Lucy sat up, her heart racing, hoping it was Daniel. Instead, she saw Gregory West walk in. He carried a small bouquet of white lilies and a forced smile. "Congratulations on your daughter," Gregory said stiffly, placing the flowers on the side table. "I heard about the birth from a contact." His voice was clipped, as if carefully measured. Lucy felt anger surge through her. "Where is Daniel?" she demanded. "Why isn't he here?" Gregory's face darkened. He cleared his throat. "Daniel's dealing with some personal matters. He asked me to check on you." Lucy stared at Gregory, incredulous. "He didn't come because he's dealing with personal matters." Her voice trembled with rage and grief. "He abandoned me during labor." Gregory's expression remained impassive, as though well practiced in hiding emotion. "I understand you're upset, Lucy, but you must realize that Daniel is in a complicated position." Lucy found his words hollow. An ache spread through her chest, fueled by postpartum hormones and betrayal. Finally, Gregory placed a sealed envelope beside Lucy. "This should help with any expenses," he said, flatly. Lucy glared at him. The gesture felt like hush money, a way to keep her quiet. Before leaving, Gregory's final words were chilling. "Focus on recovering Lucy. We'll be in touch." After he departed, Lucy tore open the envelope to find a check with an enormous sum, enough to support her and Eloise for years. Lucy's tears were unstoppable now. There in that hospital room, she vowed never to rely on the West family's charity again. Lucy spent 3 days in the hospital, taking her time to heal from the C-section. Teresa stood by her side, a constant pillar of comfort. In those days, Daniel never showed up, never called, never texted. Each hour that passed solidified Lucy's heartbreak and her resolve. On the morning of her discharge, Lucy gathered her belongings, ignoring the hush money check tucked away in a bedside drawer. She would not dignify Gregory West's bribe by cashing it. Instead, she called a lawyer recommended by Teresa, a sharp, empathetic woman named Eva Kwan, known for handling high-profile divorces and custody battles. Eva arrived at Lucy's apartment, an apartment she rented on short notice far from the West penthouse. While Lucy fed Eloise, Eva laid out her legal options. "New York is very straightforward about paternal rights," Eva explained. "But if Daniel isn't showing up or taking responsibility, you do have recourse. We can file for primary custody. You can choose whether or not to include Daniel on Eloise's birth certificate." Lucy's chest tightened. "He doesn't deserve to have his name on that certificate," she whispered, tears gathering. "He hasn't even met her. He left me in the hospital alone." Eva nodded gently. "Then we proceed that way. But be warned, Daniel could come back at any moment and try to assert parental rights. He might have a legal team behind him." Lucy inhaled, pressing Eloise closer. Then we'll deal with it when it happens. With that determination, Lucy moved forward. She cut off any personal ties with the West family, blocked Daniel on her phone, and quietly settled into her new life. Day by day, she nursed Eloise, changed diapers, and hummed lullabies in a small studio apartment in the Bronx. It was a step down from the luxury she once knew, but she felt more authentic and safer. She had no illusions this would be easy, but she would protect Eloise at any cost. 2 months passed with no word from Daniel. Lucy had begun to find her footing as a single mother. Her parents helped on weekends, Teresa came by with groceries and moral support, and Lucy's remote consulting work for her old investment firm gave her enough financial stability to cover rent and baby supplies. Then, on a windy autumn afternoon, her phone buzzed with an unknown number. Instinctively, Lucy almost let it go to voicemail, but something made her pick up. Lucy came a voice that was achingly familiar. "It's me." A surge of conflicting emotions welled up. Anger, hurt, longing, disbelief. "What do you want?" she managed to say, keeping her tone cold. Daniel hesitated. I heard you left the penthouse. My father told me you took off without a word." "Look, I've been going through a lot. I'm sorry I didn't come to the hospital." Lucy let out a disbelieving laugh. "A lot. I was in labor, Daniel. You abandoned me and our daughter. You haven't even tried to see her." A tense silence stretched. Then Daniel's voice sounded small, uncharacteristically unsure. "I know. I messed up. Can we at least talk in person?" Lucy's heart clenched. She looked at Eloise sleeping peacefully in her bassinet, her tiny hand curled near her cheek. "You had months to show up," Lucy said. "Eloise doesn't even know you exist." He sighed. "I want to fix things. Let's meet at least for coffee or something. We can discuss everything, like the birth certificate." That mention felt like a trigger. "You lost that, right?" "I'm not putting your name on it," Lucy snapped. Then she added, "My lawyer will be in touch." She hung up before he could reply. Lucy's hands shook as she ended the call. She took a few deep breaths, trying to steady the wave of emotions. She thought about how different their life was supposed to be. Husband and wife welcoming their child together. Now all that remained was a cold, legal distance. Despite her trembling, Lucy felt a flicker of satisfaction. She was no longer the frightened wife waiting on Daniel's every move. She was a mother, determined and unwavering. In the weeks following Daniel's phone call, Lucy buried herself in motherhood and her consulting work. She filed the necessary paperwork with Eva Kwon to keep Daniel's name off Eloise's birth certificate. Eva warned Lucy that Daniel might contest this, but so far, he hadn't made any legal moves. Then, one afternoon, Lucy's phone rang again. This time, it was Eva. "Lucy, I've received a request for mediation from West's legal team. They want to negotiate the birth certificate and potential financial support." Lucy felt her stomach twist. She agreed to meet, if only to see what new angle Daniel might be playing. They convened in a modest conference room at Eva's offices. Lucy arrived with Teresa, who offered moral support. On the other side of the table sat Daniel, looking more haggard than Lucy remembered. Dark circles marred his eyes, and his once pristine suit looked slightly rumpled. Beside him sat a stern-looking attorney in a crisp gray suit. "Thank you for coming," Daniel started, trying to meet Lucy's gaze. She remained silent, arms folded, her lawyer seated at her side. Daniel's attorney cleared his throat. "My client wishes to establish paternity, thereby securing his legal rights to the child." Lucy's heart thumped. She felt the urge to shout that he had no right, but Eva placed a hand on her arm to keep her calm. Daniel spoke up, voice trembling slightly. "Lucy, I know I messed up. I was overwhelmed. My father, he threatened to cut me off completely if I continued with the relationship. I panicked. I'm not proud of that, but I'm ready to be a father now." Silence descended. Lucy's mind reeled. She glanced at Daniel's attorney and then to Eva. Finally, Lucy leaned forward, looking Daniel directly in the eyes. Overwhelmed, she said quietly, "You chose to abandon me in a hospital bed. You blocked me out of your life. And now, you want your parental rights. You expect me to hand them over?" Daniel swallowed hard, but he didn't break eye contact. "I know it won't be easy, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to be in Eloise's life." Their mediation session turned into a tense standoff. Daniel insisted he had been manipulated by his father, who threatened to pull funding from his personal accounts and remove him from West Holdings' future ventures. He claimed confusion, fear, and the pressure of preserving the West legacy clouded his judgment. "I was weak," he admitted, voice strained. "But I'm not going to let that keep me from my daughter anymore." Lucy fought back tears. She wanted to believe in redemption, to give her child a father. Yet every memory of those lonely hours in the hospital, the heartbreak, the sense of utter betrayal roared inside her. Eva leaned forward, tone measured but firm. "Legally, Lucy has the right to keep Daniel off the birth certificate. If you want to pursue a paternity test and legal recognition, you can. However, Lucy can also sue for child support and other obligations." Daniel's attorney nodded. "We're aware, but Daniel would prefer a cooperative arrangement. He's prepared to provide substantial support for Eloise, housing, education, medical care." Lucy's anger rose. "You think I can be bought? You think your support erases what you did to us?" Her voice trembled, but she held her ground. "I don't need your money." Daniel looked down, shame evident. "It's not about buying you. I want to make up for lost time, to do right by Eloise." Lucy inhaled sharply, tears edging. "You can't make up lost time. You ran away when I needed you the most. That's not something a check can fix." Daniel offered a fragile nod, unable to muster a defense. Eva signaled for a break, leading Lucy out of the conference room. In the hallway, Lucy leaned against the wall, wiping away silent tears. Part of her still felt love for Daniel, or at least the memory of the man she had loved. But another part, the fierce mother within her, refused to let him hurt Eloise the way he had hurt her. The next phase would be a legal battle, Lucy realized. She steeled herself for war. Amidst the looming custody battle, Lucy received an unexpected piece of mail, a letter from a Manhattan law firm representing Great-Aunt Marjorie Herrera, an elderly relative Lucy had barely known. According to the letter, Aunt Marjorie had named Lucy and her future descendants as key beneficiaries of her estate. Confused, Lucy reached out to the firm and learned that Aunt Marjorie passed away quietly in her sleep 2 weeks prior. Lucy's life had changed so drastically in the months since Eloise's birth that she hardly remembered extended family, let alone those who might hold substantial assets. Aunt Marjorie, it turned out, had been somewhat of a recluse, but possessed considerable wealth from real estate investments in New York. Marjorie chose Lucy, whom she admired for her grit and intelligence, as the primary heir. Within days, Lucy was scheduled for a reading of Aunt Marjorie's will. She attended with Teresa by her side and Eloise sleeping in her carrier. The attorney explained that Lucy now owned several properties in Brooklyn and Queens, as well as a significant sum in savings and investments. Stunned, Lucy realized she had gone from the modest daughter of immigrants to a near prisoner of the West family's wealth, to now possessing an inheritance of her own. She gazed at Eloise, feeling a swirl of gratitude and sadness. Gratitude for the financial security this bestowed, sadness that she never truly connected with Marjorie in life. A day later, Lucy called Eva Kwan. "I want to revise my own will," Lucy said, her voice steady. "I need to protect Eloise, and I want no mention of Daniel or the West family in any of it." Eva was cautious. "Lucy, are you sure? If you exclude Daniel entirely, it might provoke further legal action. Plus, he's the biological father." Lucy's voice trembled with a quiet determination. "He doesn't deserve anything. If something happens to me, I only trust Teresa and my parents to look after Eloise. I don't want Daniel or the West Empire to lay a finger on my daughter's inheritance." So began the process of legally safeguarding Eloise's future. For Lucy, it was more than a financial decision. It was a statement of independence, a severing of ties from a toxic legacy. Lucy's decision to revise her will and exclude Daniel must have reached the West family's ears. One afternoon, Gregory West himself appeared at Lucy's new townhouse in Brooklyn, a property she inherited from Aunt Marjorie and had begun renovating. It was the first time Lucy laid eyes on Gregory since he had dropped the hush money check in her hospital room. Lucy answered the door, Eloise perched on her hip. Gregory's cold gaze flickered to the infant. He gave a curt nod, stepping inside without an invitation. Lucy tensed, but let him in to avoid a scene on the doorstep. "I understand you've come into some inheritance." Gregory started scanning the partially renovated living room, his expression unreadable. "That's none of your business," Lucy replied tersely. Gregory exhaled. "Perhaps, but I wanted to offer a warning. Daniel is still a West, and Eloise is his child. We have the means to ensure Daniel's rights are recognized." Lucy's jaw clenched. "You can file all the lawsuits you want. Your son already abandoned me in my most vulnerable moment. That's inexcusable." Gregory arched a brow. "Life isn't always so simple. Daniel has regrets, but that doesn't mean he should be cut off from his own child or from potential inheritance rights." Lucy could hardly believe his nerve. "You know, Gregory, Eloise is my daughter, and she won't grow up under your control or your money. If you want to threaten me, go ahead. I'm not scared anymore." A hint of frustration crossed Gregory's features. He took a step forward, lowering his voice. "The West family has power, Lucy. If you refuse to see reason, we can make life very difficult. Do you really want to raise your daughter alone without the resources we can provide?" In that moment, Eloise let out a small wail. Lucy rocked her gently, meeting Gregory's gaze with fierce resolve. "I'd rather raise her alone than watch her grow in a household built on intimidation and neglect." Gregory pressed his lips together, then turned and left without another word. Lucy stood there, heart pounding. She was ready to face any storm the West family brewed. Daniel escalated his campaign for paternity rights. Within a month, Lucy was served with official court papers challenging her refusal to include Daniel's name on Eloise's birth certificate. If the test confirmed Daniel's paternity, he demanded partial custody or at minimum regular visitation rights. Lucy's nerves were frayed, but she refused to back down. The first hearing took place on a brisk winter day. Lucy, wearing a simple black suit, cradled Eloise in the court's waiting area. Daniel sat across the hall with his attorney glancing periodically in Lucy's direction. She stared straight ahead, chin lifted. When their case was called, they stepped before a stern judge. Eva Kwan presented Lucy's testimony. Daniel had abandoned Lucy while she was in labor, provided no emotional or financial support thereafter, and only reached out months later. Lucy's stance was clear. Daniel had shown no genuine commitment to Eloise's well-being. Daniel's attorney countered that Daniel had made attempts to reconcile, was now fully prepared to take financial and emotional responsibility, and deserved the opportunity to bond with his daughter. Their argument portrayed Daniel's absence as a momentary lapse due to family pressures. The judge, impartial but attentive, requested a paternity test. Lucy nodded, resigned. There was no question Daniel was the father, but the legal confirmation would clarify certain aspects. The next court date would follow after the test results. Daniel tried to approach Lucy in the hallway afterward. "I'm serious about being there for Eloise," he said softly. The sincerity in his eyes made her chest tighten. "She's not a toy you can pick up after ignoring her," Lucy replied, voice trembling. "I'm doing this for her, not for you. If the court orders you to pay child support or grants you visitation, I can't change that. But I won't let you hurt her like you hurt me." Daniel looked pained, but Lucy walked away. Teresa wrapped an arm around Lucy's shoulder, whispering encouragement. Outside, the wind whipped around them, but Lucy felt a new kind of calm. The fight had only begun, yet she no longer felt trapped. She had Eloise, the unconditional love of her daughter, and a steadfast determination that no court or West family intimidation could break. In the midst of the legal battle, Lucy continued renovations on her inherited townhouse and found solace in preparing a real home for Eloise, complete with a cozy nursery painted in soft lilac. Work opportunities also started rolling in thanks to her strong reputation in finance. Clients admired her perseverance and soon began referring more projects her way. One evening, while Lucy was finishing a client's financial proposal, she received a call from an unfamiliar number. Expecting another attorney or real estate agent, she answered tersely. Instead, she heard a gentle, female voice. "Lucy, it's Sabrina West, Daniel's sister." Lucy tensed. She had met Sabrina briefly at the wedding, a quiet young woman overshadowed by her father's domineering presence. "I hope this isn't about Gregory," Lucy said. "Please hear me out," Sabrina replied. "I'm not calling on my father's behalf. I want to meet you to talk. I have information you need." Hesitant but curious, Lucy agreed to a discreet coffee meetup. The next day, at a small cafe in Midtown, Lucy recognized Sabrina immediately. Petite dark hair pulled into a sleek bun, eyes darting nervously. Once seated, Sabrina confessed that she'd always admired Lucy's resilience. "I see how my father manipulates Daniel. Gregory tries the same with me, but I've resisted for years by staying out of the family business." Lucy listened intently as Sabrina revealed the West family's plan. "My father is pushing Daniel to reassert his claim over Eloise because it's good PR for West Holdings. It makes the family look stable. Gregory's also worried about your inheritance. He heard you gained millions. He sees it as a threat." Shaking her head in disbelief, Lucy felt her anger rising. Sabrina reached out, voice trembling. "I know Daniel hurt you, but he's also a victim of my father's manipulation. Daniel has debts from gambling, Lucy. He's in over his head." Gregory dangled financial help in exchange for Daniel reclaiming Eloise. Tears stung Lucy's eyes as frustration and heartbreak collided. She thanked Sabrina for her honesty, uncertain how to process all this new information. As she walked home, Lucy clutched Eloise closer. The West name, once so alluring, now felt like a toxic web that threatened to pull them in. The DNA test results arrived exactly as expected. Daniel was confirmed to be Eloise's biological father. There was no question about the science. The battle now moved to the courtroom, where truth and emotional history collided under sterile lights and polished benches. On the morning of the final hearing, Lucy arrived at the courthouse dressed in quiet strength, a charcoal blazer over a soft cream blouse, her hair neatly tied back. Eloise, bundled in a pale pink wrap, cooed softly in her arms. Teresa accompanied them, carrying a diaper bag and moral fortitude in equal measure. Daniel sat across the hallway, shoulders hunched, fidgeting with his cufflinks. His lawyer whispered into his ear as he nodded with mechanical detachment. For all his gestures of remorse, handwritten letters, plush toys, and offers to co-parent, Lucy couldn't shake the image of lying alone on a hospital bed while giving birth, his absence a wound she hadn't fully healed from. The judge presiding over the case was known for her no-nonsense demeanor. Her grey hair was tied into a tight chignon, and she greeted the court with brisk authority. As proceedings began, Eva Kwan stood, tall, her voice calm and composed. "Your Honor," Eva began, "my client, Ms. Herrera, has been the sole caregiver and financial provider for Eloise since the moment of her birth. Mr. West's involvement up until the results of the paternity test has been virtually non-existent. He left Ms. Herrera during labor, failed to offer support in the crucial postpartum months, and has only recently shown interest after legal proceedings began." Daniel's attorney countered swiftly, emphasizing Daniel's recent efforts and financial stability. "Mr. West acknowledges his mistakes, Your Honor, and he seeks a path forward, not to disrupt Eloise's life, but to be a part of it. He's ready to provide financial assistance, medical coverage, educational planning, and emotional support." Lucy watched Daniel throughout his face, a portrait of desperation tinged with shame. He nodded earnestly at every word his attorney said, but Lucy's heart remained guarded. She remembered Gregory's threats, the manipulations, the power plays that had nothing to do with love or responsibility. Finally, the judge folded her hands and looked at both parties. "The court finds Mr. West's paternity confirmed and recognizes his intent to be involved. However, it also finds credible evidence of significant abandonment during key emotional and physical periods for both mother and child." Lucy held her breath. "I hereby award full physical custody to Ms. Herrera. Mr. West will be granted supervised visitation, starting with weekly sessions at an approved family center. These terms will be revisited in 6 months based on a report from the supervising counselor. Financial child support is to be arranged through the court." The gavel came down like a final note in a symphony of heartache. Daniel turned toward Lucy as the courtroom began to clear. "Thank you for not shutting me out completely," he said, softly, eyes glistening. "I won't let her down again." Lucy stared at him for a long moment, Eloise's soft breath against her collarbone. "You already did," she said, voice low but resolute. "But now the court will make sure you don't do it again. If you want to be her father, prove it. Every day. Not just with gifts or court orders, but by showing up. No more excuses." She turned and walked away, Teresa close behind. Outside, the air was cold but bracing. As the wind stirred Eloise's blanket, Lucy pulled it tighter around her daughter and whispered, "We did it." She hadn't just fought for custody, she had fought for dignity, for accountability, and for the future she and Eloise deserved. The courtroom battle was over, but Lucy knew the war for Eloise's well-being had only just begun. The judge's ruling granted her full physical custody, but Daniel's court-sanctioned visitation meant he was now tethered to their lives, an unavoidable presence Lucy couldn't ignore, no matter how much she might have wanted to. In the weeks that followed, Lucy finalized the draft of her will. She sat with Eva Kwan, in the quiet office overlooking the East River, the weight of every decision heavy on her shoulders. The will named Teresa and Lucy's parents as Eloise's guardians in the event of her death. Daniel West was mentioned nowhere. "Are you absolutely sure you want to do this?" Eva asked gently, her pen poised. "You've won full custody, but if something ever happens to you, Daniel might legally challenge the will, especially now that his paternity is confirmed." "I'm sure," Lucy said without hesitation. "I want it in writing that the West family will never control my daughter's life or legacy." And so she signed it pen on paper, a mother's vow made legally binding. The document also detailed her inherited assets, 3 brownstones in Brooklyn and Queens, various savings accounts, and investment portfolios left by Aunt Marjorie. It was more than security, it was freedom. Lucy used part of her inheritance to create a small trust in Eloise's name, one that couldn't be accessed by anyone but her chosen guardians until Eloise turned 21. She also paid off the last of her student loans and invested in a few promising tech startups with the guidance of former colleagues from her old investment firm. In the quiet hours of the evening, she'd sometimes marvel at how far she'd come, from the young woman, terrified and alone in a hospital bed, to the resolute mother building a future on her own terms. Life moved forward. Daniel began attending his court-mandated supervised visits at a counseling center in Manhattan. The first few sessions were awkward. Eloise, still a baby, didn't recognize him. She'd look up at his face with wide, questioning eyes and occasionally cry until the counselor stepped in. Daniel tried to read her stories or feed her bottles, his hands trembling slightly each time. Lucy watched from behind a two-way mirror, arms folded tightly across her chest. She refused to sit in the same room, not yet, but she couldn't deny he was trying. He showed up on time. He never missed a session. Slowly, Eloise stopped crying when he held her. Then one afternoon, Lucy heard a soft giggle through the glass wall. Daniel was blowing raspberries on Eloise's belly, and she was laughing, a real delighted baby laugh. Lucy's throat tightened, her fingers clenching at her sides. After the session, Daniel looked toward the observation window. He didn't smile, didn't wave. He just nodded, as if acknowledging her pain, her strength, and his place on the outer edge of their world. Gregory West never reappeared. Rumors swirled through Manhattan's high society circles. Daniel had requested more financial support than his father was willing to give. Some whispered that Gregory had begun preparing his younger nephew to inherit the West Holdings legacy instead. Sabrina occasionally visited Lucy, bringing baby gifts or helping with renovations. "You're doing it," she told Lucy, once watching Eloise wobble around on unsure legs. "You're breaking free of all of it." Lucy hosted Eloise's first birthday in the living room of her freshly renovated Brooklyn townhouse. The day was sunny and clear. Her parents came, bearing a homemade tres leches cake. Teresa brought a custom picture book filled with photos from Eloise's first year. Friends and neighbors gathered, celebrating the milestones of a little girl who had already survived the chaos of broken promises and courtrooms. Daniel wasn't invited. Instead, he sent a velvet box with a silver rattle inside Eloise's initials, delicately engraved. Lucy stared at the gift for a long time before placing it in a memory box. She wasn't sure if Eloise would ever want to know that side of her story, but Lucy would keep the pieces, both the beautiful and the broken. That night, after the guests left and the last of the balloons sagged toward the floor, Lucy held Eloise close and stepped onto the balcony. The city stretched before them in glittering silence. She kissed her daughter's forehead and whispered, Whatever comes next, we face it together. And for the first time, the future didn't feel daunting. It felt like something she could shape with her own hands, not in defiance of Daniel or Gregory, but in honor of herself and of Eloise. The chapter ahead would still carry echoes of the past, but this time, Lucy would be the one holding the pen. Thank you for joining this emotional journey of heartbreak, resilience, and empowerment. Lucy's story reminds us that even when life throws its cruelest twists, the human spirit can fight back with fierce love and unbreakable determination. She refused to be defined by betrayal or manipulated by power, and instead claimed her daughter's future as her own. If you found Lucy and Eloise's battle against the odds inspiring, please help us share this story with others who might need a reminder that hope can triumph over despair. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel for more riveting tales that illustrate the power of courage, love, and second chances. Your support fuels our storytelling and ensures we can keep bringing you powerful narratives that echo the real struggles and real victories we see every day. Stay strong, and until next time, thank you for listening.